So I was thinking about the issue of abandonment that a lot of people struggle with, whether they know that that's what they're struggling with or they are unaware of their own personal issues of abandonment. Um, but as a reader, that is a lot of times at the core of what my clients are struggling with, especially in relationship readings and that sort of thing. It almost always goes back to a sense of abandonment. And I wanted to just sort of explore and share my thoughts about that because it just seems like something that so many people encounter, and so that maybe somebody who finds this video um, would benefit from what I have to share. So, what is abandonment? Well, in the sense that I'm talking about, I mean it primarily in relationship to one's childhood. And abandonment in childhood can happen at any age, in any form. Primarily, when we think of abandonment issues, we think of someone whose, father left when they were really young, or they never knew their father or their mother, or one of their parents passed away, and that sort of really intense, like that person is gone from this person's life. And that is, really intense for those of you out there who have experienced that. That is a challenge to heal that. But it can also, abandonment can also, happen in subtler ways. Divorce can be a huge abandonment issue where a child feels as though they're responsible for the parents breaking up, and or for some reason they're not lovable enough, they're not special or primary enough to keep the family together, and so to be split from the family unit that they've been accustomed to can feel, they're abandoned by the family, even if both parents stay in that child's life. There's also even more subtle forms, like a parent who has to work all the time and isn't available. That's a form of abandonment. Parents who live in environments that are really unsafe, or they have to just constantly be on alert in order to keep the family safe, and so all of their time and attention is outside of themselves rather than towards the child and meeting the child's safety needs. That can trigger, within the child, fears of abandonment. Because that's the thing, too. I think a lot of times people think of abandonment as something that only happens from kids who are actually abandoned. But if you live in a really crazy environment, where things feel unsafe on an intuitive level as a child, then you can have major fears of abandonments that may never happen, but you're always on hyper alert that something could happen. And so, all of these different experiences of loss or fear of loss we carry it on in our adult life, because a lot of times situations that create abandonment are really traumatic, and in order to function within our culture, which doesn't really allow for deep emotional processing and healing and grieving, and if you did receive that, that's great, but most of us didn't have that kind of guidance or space in our life to handle and work through our emotions at the time, and so we adapt. Children adapt and adjust and try their best to make sense of whatever they're experiencing. And so all of those, physical, emotional sensations that are associated with the experience get suppressed. and and we grow, and time goes on, and we either turn to substances as a way of comforting this need that goes unmet because of feeling abandoned, or we turn to relationships. If I can get this person to love me and make me feel safe, then maybe I can feel better in my body, and my emotions will be calm, my body will feel safe. And so anytime you turn to something outside of yourself, whether it's a drug or work or a relationship for a sense of safety, and anytime we're seeking safety, it's because without the safety, we would be on our own. We would be flailing. We would be abandoned with nothing to hold on to. So we hold on to these things as a way of like keeping ourselves safe. And, you know, the reason why healing, doing one's personal healing work is so important, is because when we don't heal those early experiences, we recreate them. We re-traumatize ourselves over and over again through the people or the jobs or the, homes that we choose to live in. Subconsciously, we put ourselves in situations that would actually lead to our abandonment, or we make choices in relationships that push people away to where they would be more likely to abandon us. We will recreate the abandonment situation. Or we will be, likely to abandon others and act out our wounds through the role of the adults that let us down. We will let others down, and experience a different form of isolation as we try and manage the deeper vulnerable feelings. So, as far as like romantic relationships and that sort of thing goes, because that really is the thing that I tend to read on the most, the reason why dealing and becoming aware of, first of all, become aware of what abandonment are you carrying around within you? What still needs your attention? What still needs grieving? And sometimes, you may not be able to get in touch with that until the relationship is at its breaking point and you've been abandoned, and then all of that stuff comes up. And I think that's really important for those of you who might be going through a separation or a breakup and it's so intense and you feel like you're drowning in grief and confusion and sadness and all of this. Even for people who had relatively healthy, childhoods, a breakup is tough. There's sadness, there's grief, there's different things that are associated just naturally for being a human. But a lot of times the intensity that people feel when a relationship is ending or they're going through a major transition that feels outside of their control is that those old abandonment wounds are being brought to the surface. And so the thing that I try and encourage people to do at that time is to take advantage of this raw moment and begin to connect the dots on what are the specifics of this situation and how do they relate, how are they similar to what your key, or core, I should say, core abandonment experiences were. And when you can kind of make that association, you sort of get yourself out of the current day suffering, because usually, it will work out or it won't, but you suffering and pining and trying to figure out how to make it work or get the person back or whatever is really just a distraction from the deeper issues that are just, pulling and punching inside of you to get your attention and say, heal me, pay attention to me, I need you. And that's your inner child having a temper tantrum, feeling everything that you weren't able to really feel and express. The fear, the anger, the sadness, all of that pain that you feel when someone breaks up with you, or even if you break up with someone, sometimes it can come up even when you're the one choosing it, is that inner child who is just freaking out. You're freaking out because you weren't able to fully freak out and make sense of the core experience. And so that's what is taking place now. And when you begin to heal that and nurture that, that's when you step into who you really are. Because abandonment, unhealed abandonment wounds, you can't create a stable life for yourself because you're always so afraid of losing something, of being abandoned. And so you can never fully be present with what is. And that is the source of stability, is simply being in the now, being present with whatever is in front of you in that moment. The only constant is change, and that's the kind of mindset and energy that I want to embody in myself, and I want to encourage others to embody, because that's where peace lies. So if you're experiencing loss and you're experiencing grief and you're experiencing pain due to a form of abandonment in your life that's taking place right now, take a moment to reflect on when else were you abandoned, and work your way back. And more than likely you will find that there's still some old grief that's present, and that when it comes down to it, you and only you can be there for yourself. I think that it is possible to have relationships and friendships and connections in your life that can mirror to you safety, and can mirror to you acceptance and consistency and all of these different things. But even that is only a mirror of what you possess within yourself, which is safety, strength, consistency, these qualities that are calling out to you to begin to cultivate and embody within yourself, so that you can be the good parent to yourself, so that you can show up for yourself and nurture yourself and be an individual. Because once you have that down, then you are free to give, free to receive, you're free to love, you're free to walk away, you're free to choose how you want to live your life, rather than having things happen to you to try and wake you up to what needs to be healed. So that is my thoughts on abandonment issues that are triggered due to loss and in relationships. And I just wanted to share and see if that resonates with anyone, and if so, maybe you can apply it to your life and become a little bit closer to that part of you that is safe and is resilient and joyful. So thanks.
Let's cut out the melodrama so we can wake up the whole wide world. Let's make up and start all over.